Ask for confirmation of the agenda. Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Vauden, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. Moving to point 4 of the consent agenda, is there any points that councillor would like pulled out for extra attention? Okay. If there's not pulling anything out, is somebody, Councillor Syke,
I'll move it.
moves the consent agenda, and Councillor Hallahan seconds. All in favor? Okay. That puts us immediately to 5.1, where we have Rob Van Aken, General Manager of Tucker Smith Communications Cooperative Limited. Welcome, Rob.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak for a few minutes. I try not to take up too much of your time. I'm here to talk to you about the ESTC and it being declared surplus and the effect that has on Tucker Smith. I'll just read through the short letter that I sent all along earlier, and then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. So the history is Tucker Smith Communications is a member-owned cooperative whose primary focus is service, which we do by investing in infrastructure. In 2013, Tucker Smith entered into an agreement with the Township of North Huron to lease space in the ESTC to host a fiber hub to serve Blythe, Lonsborough, and area. I attached the press release from the original date. So the current situation, the Township of North Huron has declared the ESTC building surplus. This has put the long-term tenancy for the Blythe fiber hub in doubt. Tucker Smith needs to maintain a permanent space as the usable life expectancy of our current fiber deployments is 50 years plus. Therefore, locating critical points of fiber infrastructure, like the fiber hub at the ESTC, in a private enterprise is not desirable for the following reasons. Access. We need access to the equipment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not unlike a fire hall. That may not align with the interest of a private owner, as they may have safety, security, or biocontamination concerns that they might want to manage. Building reconfiguration. The new owner may want to rearrange or repurpose the building, and the main fiber runs through the floor of that to the opposite side of that building, and there'd be a question if this would remain undisturbed. Ownership may change multiple times over the decades, and potential lease dispute may cause a future owner to lock out future Tucker Smith employees, putting the entire regional network in jeopardy. Infrastructure investment. As it is our intention to invest a significant amount of capital in Blythe site over the next few decades, it will be exponentially more difficult and costly as time goes on to relocate it, should we be asked to vacate the premises. And finally, we feel it's simply not feasible to try to negotiate terms with a private business to satisfy our concerns of risk to the network for the next half century. Going forward, Tucker Smith may freeze future capital investment in the Blythe Fiber Hub until a new site location is in operation. The reason for doing this is every service we turn on will have to be mirrored at the new site. This means if we spend $1 in the ESTC, which will mean we'll have to invest $1 in the new site. As the new site has to be operational before customer migration can begin from the old site. Unfortunately, it is not an option for us to simply turn off the equipment and move it. We think the solution is we've chosen the northeast corner of the ESTC for severance as a preferred potential solution for the following reasons. Proximity to the ESTC, use of existing duct structure that was installed 5 years ago, which will reduce the construction cost, ease of obtaining a hydro service, and the property is currently under the control of the municipality. So to be prepared for any future development in the area, Tucker Smith needs to act fast to bring a new site online so that we are prepared to offer service when requested. This is not only in Tucker Smith's best interest, but we feel it's in the best interest of North Huron, Central Huron, and Huron County as well. I've attached a picture of one of our buildings, it's in Eglinville, and also the preliminary site plan that indicates what we need off the corner of the STC lot.
Questions from council or comments? Councillor Vodden.
So I'm wondering if it's an absolute certainty that if you could not chance a negotiation with the new owner.
I would never do it. It's way too risky. And not, you know, I'm talking about a place that's got to be in service long after I'm dead. Like, you know, like our building in Bayfield, 60 years old. The picture I sent around, this building was installed in 1988. Once these things land, they don't move. And I thought, and when we entered into this in 2013, that was a new fire hall. I thought we were good, you know, and I'm sure everybody did around the table when we made those agreements. That we would be there for 50 years.
Councillor Site.
I just think we need staff to go back and do a report to us about what the options that we have for that, for taking into consideration Tucker Smith's requests and look at that from how does that change our surplus and how does it deviate from the process that we're doing from that. I don't think it does a lot. I just think it's requirement of the staff to prepare a report that says how do we mitigate both Tucker Smith's concerns, the municipality's concerns, but also complete what we want to do.
I was going to ask Dwayne if he had talked to the planning department as to the possibility of a small severance. Not enough to comment?
No, so, but just in terms of the Emergency Service Training Center is located in Central Huron. So it would be Central Huron's planner that would be reviewing and commenting on the matter. But just in terms of the severance, if that was council's wish, you can use your authority and do the severance. It's because you own the property. Okay. Even though it's in the municipality, you can use your severance authority to sever it without going through the formal consent or severance process. You would need obviously to look at the zoning on the property. That's something the planner for Central Huron would need to look at, as well as access to the property off of the county road. Two separate parcels.
Going to Councillor Site.
Yeah, that's really my comment is let's have a report that takes into consideration the concerns of Tucker Smith Communication, what we can do to mitigate those risks and those issues from Tucker Smith's perspective, but also the municipality's perspective about what our end goal of this situation was. So if council can get that information in a report, then we can at least advise on what we as council can decide on what we need to do from a perspective. I completely understand Tucker Smith's position on this. I have to be quite honest with you. I never even considered it. I didn't even know about it, to be quite honest about that information being available or that information being in that building at the time when we made that call. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's one of these things where we didn't know at the time we made the decision. It would have been obviously nice to know, but now we know based on what the general manager has provided us. So let's go back and get a report and get the information so what we can do to mitigate.
Okay, going to Councillor Vodden.
It seems to me that Central Huron have to be involved too from some angles, even though we own the property. I would think they would have to be involved at some point. Is that correct?
Would want them involved.
Yes.
Like, it is Central Huron's, it is in Central Huron. It's no different than the discussion about the Tim Hortons and stuff. We need to have communication back and forth and be able to have frank conversations. So I think that's fair to have that.
And for area involved, Rob, something 10 meters by 10 meters?
That's, yes, 10 meters by 10 meters. As long as the zoning rules permit that of being that small. But in a utility situation, I've never done anything in like this in North Huron or in Central Huron for that matter. But we have done in the past, well, in Tuckersmith and then Huron East to go for a lot no bigger than practically the building that sits on.
Deputy Reeve Campbell?
So you need your own private access to this property?
So-
That would mean another laneway put into it.
If I would want the space to put in a laneway, but if I was allowed by the next property owner to drive in and park where that old school bus sits now, that would just be fine by me, you know. But that could be a discussion between Tuckersmith and the next owner, as long as I have the space to put the access in if they deny me access,
If required.
if required. No.
Councillor Wadden?
I have to comment that one thing that's really, really important behind this is the fact that Tuckersmith has been very good citizens to this area. And in various capacities, I've worked with them for many years, and it's a forthright organization, very forward-looking, well-financed and well-organized. And so I think we should do everything we can to accommodate their requirements.
Anything else? Thank you for the presentation. That we will be making some kind of a decision probably on the 4th of September.
Okay.
That will be when the information will come back to council. And that I know that some prospective bidders on the property are aware of the request for a small severance out of the northeast corner. It's of the ones that we know of, so that hopefully they aren't surprised at all by this. And I think that excellent fiber optic communications is also probably the wish of most any business, that they would love to have it close by. And Tuckersmith has a very strong record. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Well, thank you for listening to me, for sure. Let's say we're in every building in town but one, and that's the Blythe office across from, or the Bell office across from Legion. Maybe they may call us for service someday too.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll sell that to you.
Yeah.
You want that to be a motion?
I will make the motion that staff prepare a report determining the possibility of severance on the ESTC building.
Ray seconds. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to the clerk's department, 6.1.1, the Riddle Municipal Drain, notice of on-site meeting on Huron County Road 22, South Part, Lot 28, Concession 12, East Wallinash Ward. And that Deputy Reeve Campbell attended that meeting, representing North Huron's interests. Do you have anything to comment on that?
I was really pleased with how many of the landowners were actually present. And this is a very large drain, not very much in North Huron, but enough that we had to be involved in this drain. So they will be coming back with a report. The engineer will be before the end of the year or the first of next year. Go ahead and do this drain. It'll be on the tender list by next spring.
And it's parts, specific parts of the drain,
It's
not the whole thing?
It's just certain parts. It's actually F and G are the two sub-drains that it's going to be. We have no roads involved, no crossings involved as far as our township goes. The county, I believe, has 3 different crossings. Their engineer was there and he said, "Can't we share?" I said, "Not at this point."
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Actually, I understand it's 2, and I think the county, what they're going to put 3 of those into 2 crossings anyway.
Right, I think
But
that's
they've also asked for an extension farther, so each engineer going farther down the grade. That's one and so.
Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, moving to 6.2.1, Clean Water and Wastewater Agreement Amendment Number 2. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund Transfer Payment Agreement Number 2. And further, that a council approves an exemption to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw number 75, 2018 to be passed at the August 13th, 2018 meeting. Donna or Sean, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Ruth. So when we applied for the Clean Water and Wastewater Grant back in 2017, after we had some preliminary meetings with our engineers, they suggested that the total amount of the grant in the amount of $320,000 for the total expenses stay the same, but they had suggested a reallocation between the water and the wastewater for the 2 master plans. So we had to go through the process and apply to the CWWF for the change in scope and for the reallocating of the 2 funds before we were able to submit any of our claims. And so that's been approved through their office. So we're just following up and passing the bylaw to enact those changes.
Councillor Syke.
I'll move.
Councillor Vaughan seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to 6.2.2, PD Tree Days Project. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance dated August 13th, 2018 regarding the TD Tree Days Project.
I'll make the motion.
Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Ritzman Teninga seconds. But is there any further discussion? This is for some more trees along the trail. And so that it's naturalizing and beautifying at the same time. All in favor? Carried. Okay. I guess we'll move to Public Works. There's a list there, Sean. 6.4.1, the Blythe Community Center roof flashing repair. Do you want to go over some of the points as to the recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Ruth. Just briefly, as the report mentions, there's a number of areas where between wind, high wind and ice accumulation, there's some damage to the flashing and areas of the eaves trough on the Blythe Community Center. In total, we looked to a number of local service providers to try to secure quotes for it. We had 2 companies respond. Smith Peak came back with a price of $63.69 for the repairs, and that included approximately 35 feet of flashing to be repaired. West Coast Renovations had a look at the damage, took a different approach, and recommended 70 feet of flashing to fully address the problem areas, and their price came in $6,527. So $158 higher. But given the fact that they were looking at doing a fair bit more work in terms of materials, this report and the staff recommend that we go with the higher price, in this case at $158 more, and award the work to West Coast Renovations.
Deputy Reeve moves the motion. Councillor Syke seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.4.2, North Huron Cemetery Bylaw. You want to go through and mention that there's a few of the rules have changed and this is updating a number of things.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Actually, this was really a combined effort. We sat with a couple of the area funeral homes, as well as a group of staff that were involved directly and indirectly in cemetery operations. There was some conversation with the BAO as well in the development of the new, or this proposed new bylaw. If I can go over just the list of changes, the significant ones, and there's a few of them actually. One of the changes we did was to, or are recommending, is that we move the identified time for interments. And basically all we're proposing that we do is align the time that we allow interments with our staff hours, so that if there is an interment, the municipality, the township itself doesn't incur cost. There is a mechanism in there if somebody wants a later burial, and they pay a premium, but at least then the individuals that are using the service are paying for the service. So that basically is in there. We eliminated winter interments, and when I say we eliminated them, the existing bylaw allows for them, and it can be very problematic depending on conditions. You don't want to be in there with heavy equipment when we've got frost and heavy snow. So we eliminated it, except at the discretion of the township. So if we have a very favorable season, we would certainly rather offer the service to the families and have the burial as opposed to going to the storage room. So at the discretion of the township, we would permit them, but it's not something that somebody could come and say it's in your policy and bylaw, so we want it. Again, just protects our infrastructure. This next one was quite interesting, and there was a fair bit of consultation with the BAO on it. We're suggesting strict guidelines be introduced, and they're in the proposed bylaw surrounding the practice of disinterment. So basically, we're proposing a limit of 25 years to be incorporated into the bylaw. And what that basically means is that family of loved ones that have been interred at the site can request a disinterment for up to 25 years. After that, basically, we're saying enough time has lapsed, then the option for disinterment is off the table, unless, of course, it was driven by a medical officer of health or some sort of a formal investigation. Now, there's some clarifications that have been embedded into the proposed bylaw on permissible interment practices, specifically the number of interments per plot, the type of monument dimensions, that sort of thing. So it's really a bunch of the housekeeping. There was a section added to, because it wasn't in there, to very clearly identify what acceptable behavior would be permitted at the cemeteries. There's been some administrative changes that were recommended by the BAO, and that just aligns us again with current regulations and provincial requirements. And then the final thing was that there was clauses amended that removed vendor advantage. So you can't specifically identify any one vendor in your policy. And so we made sure that that isn't the case. And as such, we were then done with the recommended amendments. We did send it for a preliminary review by the BAO. This is a service they offer because there's a fairly extensive process to introduce a new cemetery bylaw. They don't want, or they offer this so that we don't go through the process of introducing it to council, having council support it, we post it, we submit it, and then they say, wait, this isn't compliant. So they've reviewed the amendments and said everything that we're recommending is compliant with provincial standards, guidelines, and regulations. So if it's the desire of council, at this point, we would go into the notification period for the new policy. That requires publishing notice in a newspaper, conspicuously posting it at the cemeteries, at the entrances, and also delivering a copy to each supplier that's serviced any of our municipal cemeteries in the last 12 months. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. And what we're looking now is if council is in agreement with this, with the proposed amendments, we would proceed into the notification process.
Councillor Syed?
Just a question, Sean, when you talk about at the discretion of the township, are you saying requiring council approval or just staff approval?
Through you, Reeve, that would just be an operational decision.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just wanted to confirm, clarify that.
The operations manager for the cemetery.
If, for example, our cemetery manager, Kevin said, conditions are fine, we can do this, then we would have no qualms about it.
Councillor Vodden?
I'd like to bring up a red herring in this issue. We have garnered a lot of information that's relevant to the cemetery, old information. And we've found it very, very useful when we get a request from people who are looking for where their ancestor was buried. And sometimes they're in circumstances where there is no marker and there's no record of the burial in the existing system. But quite often we can find the information from our collection, from all kinds of sources. And I would like to donate all that information, but it would have to be on condition that the North Huron is going to make a concerted effort to make the best use of all of that material and have a service that's available to anyone who comes with questions of this nature to the area. I know we have a lot of information now in our township records, but there's a lot of information that is not there. And so I would like to offer that as an incentive, but I don't want to give the information away if nothing's going to happen with it.
Sean?
If I may read, Councillor Vodden, it's a very timely statement. We actually just closed the RFP for the new cemetery software today. Obviously, there's a lot of review that's going to be required because this was a big project and there are some concerns with that very issue. We have so much data. The biggest challenge is going to be to input and collect and input all of that data. But this is something that staff is working on right now. So as we take the time and really dissect the submissions that we've received, we'll be able to get a better handle on how we're going to handle the data.
I'm glad to open discussion on it, but I want to make sure that it's looked after.
Further to that, I think while you have the information, I think we have to look at the RFPs as to how much of your information we can get into it, and hopefully staff and you can work together to
And I don't object.
come to a realization as to what can happen.
I don't have any objections if you have an inquiry at the office here and you can't find the answer. I don't mind you directing people to us or come to me, I should say, it's not us anymore, to get an answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
I'll make a motion. It's
the
recommended.
motion for approval. Okay, Councillor Wadden. All in favor? Carried. 6.43, Wingham Standpipe Site Selection. Back to Sean again.
Thank you, Reeve. This one very simply is to do with the EA process that the municipality is undergoing right now with regard to the standpipe itself. As everybody's probably aware, RJ Burnside created or completed a structural assessment back in 2015, which I believe prompted the 2016 EA process. In the process, they're going to look at all the options. And one of the options obviously would be to relocate the standpipe. But they can't really fully explore that without having an idea where that standpipe may be moved to, because obviously any change in location will have significant impact on cost and the functionality of the standpipe. The engineers at BM Ross went and looked at the area, and based on the underground infrastructure and the elevations that we have in the municipality, have a couple of places that they think would be acceptable for the installation of a standpipe. The next step in the EA is for them to start doing the calculations behind that. But really, they can't go and devote all that time without knowing that the options that they've looked at are viable. They know that they'll work operationally, but it's all very well and good to say a standpipe would be perfect right here. But if that property is not available, it's a moot point. So what staff is looking for here is just the ability to go and contact property owners of these potential sites just to see if it's viable for us to even consider severing a portion to install a standpipe.
Councillor Syed,
I will move it.
and Councillor Schmidt-Domingue, seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.4.4, the trackless MT purchase. Sean again.
Thank you, Reed. During budget deliberations, we talked about the need for a new replacement municipal tractor, an MT. That's the current unit we have is a 1986 model, or one of the two, and it's far past its duty cycle and life expectancy. Unfortunately, these units, although they work very, very well, they're a municipal tractor, they're purpose-built for sidewalk maintenance and that sort of thing. They're very expensive. During budget discussions, we were confident that we could get a used unit for somewhat less than the $135,000 that these things command new. We looked at a number of options. Trackless sells refurb units that are running about 5,000 hours. They come in anywhere from $79,900 to $90,000 for the refurb. And then the other option that we looked at, as it was seemed favorable to look at a used unit, was Gov Deals as well as Kijiji and any other posting boards. We found a unit on Gov Deals that was in the municipality about an hour from here. Looked like it would be a very good unit for us, so we had some of our crew, some of our senior guys go down, have a look at it, talk to the mechanic, talk to the operators, determined that it was a viable option. At that point, having spoken to, now the challenge here is that our existing procurement policy isn't really designed for staff to go on auction sites to purchase used equipment. So we had a discussion with the treasurer at CAO and determined that, if the price is right, this is a very good option for the municipality. And we decided that where we were comfortable bidding and entered a bid. We ended up getting the unit for 39,000 Canadian, plus there's a 5% buyer's fee, as well as the HST, which is rebatable. And for that, we got a 2006 trackless MT5. It's got approximately 3,200 hours, very good condition. It came with a sweeper attachment, water tank, the street blade, the snow blower, the rear sander, and the high chute. So this was a fairly well-equipped unit for 39,000 and change. I think net cost was $41,670, which brought us in approximately $60,089 under budget. Picked the unit up, having been successful in bidding it, and by all accounts, it looks like a very nice unit. We've already located it in Blythe. Again, the challenge with our existing procurement policy is that I can't, in dealing with an auction site, I can't come to council and say I'd like to bid, because these things move quickly. I think it was 2 weeks that it was open. So having discussed this among staff, we did talk to the Reeve and told them what we were hoping to do. And again, we were very successful. It looks like it was a good unit. So.
I will make the one comment that it came from a municipality that has a mechanic on staff, so that there was good service records on the machine. Okay, I'll take other. Councillor Vaughan, you're moving.
And does this machine stick to the sidewalk without damaging 8 or 10 inches of the lawn on either side of the sidewalk.
If I may, Reeve, this unit is specifically designed for municipal sidewalks. The photo that we were using is independent.
Great. Great. Many fewer phone calls.
Seconding, Ray?
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
No, I think it's a good deal.
Okay,
Dealt with him before.
Deputy Reeve.
I'll second.
Oh, Ray seconded it.
Oh.
I took the motion from Brock.
That's fine.
All in favor, or
It's okay.
carried anyway. Okay, 6.4.5, an amendment to the Belgrade Water Service Agreement.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. As everyone's aware, the Belgrade water system is serviced by Morris Turnberry. They have a water treatment plant on that side. So this is kind of a reciprocal cross-border servicing agreement. We had a North Huron resident that was not hooked to the system request to be tied in. In order to do that, basically this entire report speaks to the chronology of the various amendments that have been required to add different addresses to the agreement and then for North Huron to adopt the policy. So what they've done now is they've amended their policy to incorporate the one that's requested and another resident should they choose to request tie-in. Basically, all we need to do is to we need to accept the amendment so that it becomes enforced.
Okay, Deputy Reeve Campbell moves. Councillor Ritzman-Tavinga seconds. Okay. Sean?
Oh, sorry, and just to point out the other part of the resolution on this was that council approved an exemption to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw 74/2018 to be passed at the July 17, 2017.
Yeah.
Sorry,
August.
at the August
Yeah.
13th meeting.
Okay, doesn't look like any discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.4.6. OSEF top-up funding application. Who wants to take that? Sean?
I can take it, thank you. Basically, we're just looking for the OSIF top-up fund has announced a further funding stream. North Huron is eligible for up to $1,361,419 under the program. Staff looked at, Donna and I have had quite a few discussions on what projects we've had that would meet the very stringent eligibility criteria surrounding the OSIF top-up fund. Basically, they're looking for projects that are specifically linked to health and safety within the municipality. So you have to be able to cite a distinct and clear health and safety benefit to the municipality. As council recalls, we've tried to apply for this, as an example for the Westmoreland Mill Street extension. We weren't successful because you're just not be able to really, it's a competitive process and you have to be able to show that health and safety component. We looked at the standpipe project and should, through the EA process, it be determined that the best course of action is to replace that standpipe. We believe that this would be, or that particular project would align very well with the criteria. So I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse. There's a very tight deadline on submission. But basically, we're looking for permission to apply with that project in mind. If we're successful and if through the EA process it's determined that the standpipe is to be relocated, we would be well aligned at that point. We'd have a funding stream, and at that point, that would be brought to council. So it sounds a little cart before the horse, but it's it really does fit, because all we're doing at this point is looking for permission to submit.
Moved by Councillor Syed. Councillor Ritzman Tenenga seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. And 6.47, the Police Services Building roof repair. John?
Thank you. As council's aware, the roof repair issue or the roof leak issue has been a long-standing problem with the police building. In light of some of the decisions that were made or the processes that were associated with policing within the township or within Wingham, there was a bit of a delay put on the repair for obvious reasons. We didn't want to be investing funds into the facility if it wasn't going to be used. It's been determined now that the repair is absolutely required. We have a lot of water coming in. We went and inspected. It's coming in multiple locations along that south side of the roof. So basically, in light of the anticipated future of the building, when we looked at the various options, there was one company that came in, and I did give free rein to the company to come in and look at the structure and kind of determine how they would approach dealing with it. There was 3 different companies came in, 3 different approaches to how they would deal with it. And in this case, I'm certainly recommending the cheapest option of the 3 companies that came in. I'll probably walk through this very quickly. One company came in at $19,452. That was for removal of the shingles, ice and water shield, 26 gauge pre-painted steel, all associated curtains, and they would be able to do the work mid to late September. The next firm that we talked to came in at $24,335. They were using a high quality deck armor and strapping placed over the existing shingles. Spent some or suggested spending some resources on retrofitting the cast iron vents to ABS. Work would be completed in stages, and they would put the deck armor down right away, like within the next few weeks, to stop any further leakage, and then come back later in the season when things slowed down for them personally to put the steel in. And then I found a third company that came in, and they came in at $11,250, but it's a very straightforward repair. They're basically recommending strapping over top of the existing shingles and a lighter 28 gauge steel. So very quick, very simple repair to stop the leak. In light of the condition of the rest of the building, that seemed reasonable to staff, and that was the recommendation that we were.
Okay. Councillor Syed?
No.
Councillor Biden seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Okay, thanks, Sean. Okay. Moving right through to 6.8.1. Melissa will make a presentation on North Huron Museum and possible things that can happen.
Okay. Good evening. Okay, so I just wanted to bring up the flow chart that we discussed last meeting and that Pat had brought back in earlier meetings. So at the July 9th council meeting, I presented 2 options for the North Huron Museum programming for council to consider. So the first was to move the program to a new location. I presented options for different spaces within the downtown core for expanding or downsizing the program. And the second option was to deaccession the collection, and I share information on this option as well. So there was one option to move the collection that was brought forward that stood out from the others. The train station on the northern end of Josephine Street has been offered to the Township of North Huron for a $0 lease agreement for a 5-year term by a philanthropic local business person. So it's a 3,000 square foot space, completely restored. It's a 1 acre lot. It's wheelchair accessible, has gas, heat, and air conditioning to meet most of the temperature control needs we would need for a museum space. Has Main Street exposure and lots of parking. The municipality would be responsible for taxes, snow removal, landscape maintenance, grass cutting, cleaning, insurance, alarm monitoring, and utility costs. The owner would be responsible for normal capital expenditures, so HVAC, roofing, that type of thing. And the offer is contingent on the space being open to the public in a museum capacity. So this generous offer, along with the building's design, lends itself not only to a museum, but the expansion of the cultural center or tourist information center that I spoke of last meeting. So council directed staff to prepare a report outlining this process and the costs involved to move the museum and the artifacts to the programming building, as well as prepare a draft for some budget figures. Okay, so staffing plan. So the current North Huron Museum has fallen short in programming as we were only a seasonal static display of art. It was only seasonal, had a static display of artifacts. The visitorship did not impact tourism and economic development was not seen at all with this model. As stated in previous reports, there was only 300 visitors last year. So in order for this business to become impactful, a program needs to be developed that involves interaction, membership, rotation of exhibits, and special events. As stated in my last presentation, it is proposed that a museum be outfitted with some static displays focusing on core North Huron elements, Alice Munro, CCANX, as well as Westcast, that type of thing, with quarterly collection transitions to maintain interest and support a core audience. So the plan that we presented at the last meeting is to use existing staff resources for manning the space year-round, with student summer help to allow for expanded hours and special events. This support will drive volunteer engagement and build excitement, as well as garner support from the community and as well as local businesses. So a valid concern from Councillor Sype was shared at the July 9th meeting that North Huron would be going down the same path as before, with untrained staff doing a position that is outside of their scope and their education base. So to put this fear at ease, I want to reassure Council that we do not consider the above staff, so the summer staff and the regular staff that we currently have moving down there, to be the positions that would be developing the new exhibits or creating the transitional spaces. The plan is to use contract staff first to develop the necessary policies, deaccession, and move the collection, and to create the permanent installations. So this contract staff person would be hired for a 2-year position to take the collection from the current space and shape and focus it into the train station building. So moving forward, once the permanent installations are created, another contract person, or perhaps the same, would be hired on an as-needed basis and called upon to develop rotating seasonal exhibits that would then be implemented to our staff. So we wouldn't necessarily have to have, we could do all 3 at once and do a 3-month contract and then not have them back again, that type of thing. So as far as a budget, so the cost of closing the North Huron Museum. So this is if we do not move the program anywhere else. So we're looking at contract staff of approximately 18 months at a cost of $85,500. Just to start though, I want to let you know that I have been consulting with Elizabeth French Gibson, the senior curator for the County Museum and Huron County Museum and Historic Jail. By working with her, a budget has been developed to give an idea of costs, closing the museum versus moving it. So as I said, the 18-month contract staff, this person would be needed to package and properly store materials, create the policies, and deaccession the collection. This position is billed at $25 an hour and includes a benefit cost of 70% for a contract position. This was felt by Elizabeth to be a fair wage in our area and for this position. Next, continued utility costs at 18 months again, approximately $15,000. So this is a 2018 budget estimate for basically keeping the building open with staff in there to have a little bit of heat and the lights on. Moving expenses, $6,500, 2 current staff at approximately 2.5 weeks, as well as the assistance of the regular staff, so the contract staff, as well as the staff we're moving from another location. This is the recreation facilities or public works staff wages plus benefits to create that $6,500. Packaging and storing of the collection. Currently, the collection is stored poorly and in many instances in improper materials. This would need to be improved when divesting the collection to other locations. So for a total of $107,000, and I'll go back to that number again. This is the real meat of the budget. So the cost of moving the museum. So where the other budget was for simply closing the museum, this is the cost for moving as well as the operating costs. So the following costs will be incurred over the next 3 years. So retrofitting the new space includes staff desks, a new tourism desk, tables, chairs, photocopiers, phones, networking, file cabinets, all of that. We anticipate this as an approximate cost of $10,000. However, we feel we can avoid approximately 75% of these expenses by repurposing materials from other places in the museum, or in the municipality, like the current museum building and the Emergency Services Training Center. Contract staff, a 2-year contract. So this would be needed to restore the materials, create policies, and deaccession the collection, with the added responsibility of creating the permanent installations in the new space. This position, as I said, is billed at $25 an hour. It would be the same. And in order to move to the new location instead of fully divesting the collection, it will require focusing. So the deaccessioning policy will be important to polish the collection, to tell our story effectively, as well as move from that 9,550 square feet of the building next door down to the 3,000 square foot train station space. Modern museums have policies on interpretation, community, exhibition, collections, mandate, deaccessioning, strategic plans, that will all need to be created and followed by this person. Moving expenses, I already discussed that in the last slide. That would be incurred. So that's 2.5 weeks of current staff. Packaging and storing of the collection. So again, the collection will need to be stored, whether it's being shipped to other locations or whether it's being moved to our own location. Permanent displays. This is priced to be determined, as Elizabeth French Gibson felt the space, materials, and interactivity of the collection would all play a role in the cost and would need to be evaluated before we could come up with a current estimate. So if you see in a lot of modern museums, they have great big boards or an inch thick, and they sometimes have interactive parts. They either have push buttons that will have Alice Munro speaking about her book, or they would have a video screen or things like that. So depending on what type of avenue we go down would determine what kind of cost those would be incurred. Summer student wage, so that's at minimum wage for 37.5 hours per week for a cost of approximately $10,000. And we felt it was a conservative, half was be expected to be covered through grants and subsidies. Elizabeth also stated that sometimes it's up to 3/4 that they get covered. And we would have a good chance at receiving those grants because we would have a full-time person there to support them. So transitory display creation. So these would be created and switched throughout the year. So as I said, that would be the person that we would have come on after the initial move and creation was set up. Traveling exhibits come from other museums on loan, etc. That's $500. Training for regular staff. So the contract curator that would come in to create the initial setups and installations, as well as the temporary displays, will come to us trained. We will already have someone that is skilled in what we're asking them to do. Where the regular full-time staff will need some training to be able to manage the Past Perfect, so the museum software, collection, some training on collection handling, volunteer recruitment and training, etc. Utilities, that will be $10,000 a year, and will cover the snow removal, cleaning, etc. that was currently being put in the recreation and facilities budget. General museum expenses, approximately $19,000. This estimate has been extracted from the Strathroy Caradoc Museum and includes professional museum dues, travel expenses, office supplies, printing, copying, postage, marketing and PR, interpretation and education, artifact acquisition and exhibition, and conservation expenses. So in year one, we're looking at approximately $106,000, with, of course, the permanent displays being added on to year one. 2020, the cost goes down to $92,500, which would also include probably some of that fee for permanent displays. And 2021, when we're hitting our stride of a normal budget, we're looking at $55,500. So to compare the costs of the previous two slides, so closing the museum in 2019, that would cost $78,500. In 2020, it would cost $28,500 approximately, and in 2021, there would be no further impact on the North Huron budget. There would still be the museum building itself to deal with, but as far as programming, there would be no other costs. Creating the Joint Museum and Tourism Center the first year is $106,000, with that star indicating there's also the cost of the permanent displays being created. The $92,500, so dropping a bit in 2020, and then down to $55,500. So our current financials, the deficit in 2016 and 2017 were approximately $100 apart, for an approximate $26,000 has been our deficit. And in reserves, we currently have $9,226. So therefore, by 2021, the Joint Museum and Tourism Center will cost North Huron approximately an additional $30,000 per year over and above the normal expenditures. Staff would also be pursuing grants to not only cover the student wage, as we mentioned before, but also to recoup other expenses as well. Grants such as the Huron Heritage Fund, Community Museum Operating and Pay Equity Grants, which is CMOG, Ontario Trillium Foundation, Regional Tourism Organization 4 Inc., RTO4, and Libro Prosperity Fund, for example. Also, by adding a cultural tourism aspect, we are creating sustainability, increased revenue for the museum itself through admissions and donations, and the boon for economic development in the community. Available for successful partnerships with the Wing of BIA, the theater, schools, county funding, Huron Heritage Fund, etc. will be invaluable. A multi-use facility is important to attract visitors, and with this new path, we would get the best of both worlds, as previously the municipality was at a $26,000 deficit and only getting 4 months of open hours or service to our community. With this option, we would get 12 months of museum service with a strong summer focus, as well as getting year-round tourism information. So to clarify, the current museum space has not been forgotten. To recap, there are still many decisions needing to be made, which I brought up at the last meeting. So is the building to be declared surplus? Is it to be sold, repurposed, demolished? Does the heritage designation need to be removed or strengthened? The Alice Munro Garden, do we move it to a new location or sever the building lot? Electric car charging station, do we move it or come to an agreement with a possible new owner? And once council is given direction on the programming piece, information will be able to come forward with further information for that building's future plans. This is a 1 to 2 year period it will take to either clean out the building and move it, or clean out the building and de-accession it. So we will have time to make those decisions once council has made their decision. That's all she wrote.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Comments, concerns, questions from council? Councilor Vodden.
One question I have is about the state of the records that are related to the items that have been either loaned or donated. Do we have good records in that? Like, do we know, for example, who loaned something, an item that should be returned? Do we have their addresses and that sort of thing? Do you know, just a general comment on the state of records?
I can't speak to that. I've never been involved with
that,
but
This is unusual, but I will go to the gallery. Bill, can you make a
From what
comment?
I've observed over the 8 years of being in volunteering, we are very, very good at reading. There's a few things missing from the 70s and the 80s, because systems changed over the course of the 40 years.
pretty well.
Thanks, Bill.
And another little question about the recharging station. What does that, I don't know what that has to do with the museum building, it's just something on the street.
It's tied in,
Electrical.
the power comes through out of the museum building.
That's a good answer.
Gray box in the
I
wall.
don't know if the new owner would want you to steal the power.
You've answered most of my questions.
Hopefully.
Okay, Councillor Say.
You know, I think honestly, we get the best of both worlds here in the sense where we get to keep an iconic figure within the municipality from a programming standpoint, while utilizing unused space from a building owner who is looking to repurpose that facility for quite a number of, if nobody remembers, quite a number of years it's been on since One Care moved. So it's been on the market for quite a number of years. You know, I think from my perspective, it really is a best of both worlds, and I think we get for a little bit more money in a $30,000 increase to it now. When it comes to normal budgeting, there is some outlay costs originally, but you know, when we get to that third year, the intention of this council and the intention of everybody should be that programming should be top notch and should be bringing in somewhere similar to allow us to ensure that, you know, that building is what it was used for and what the purpose of it for. I think the other option too is that we can honestly provide information to people coming to the municipality, not only in Wingham or Blythe or wherever, but the fact is now they have a central location to talk about information with regards to visitors. And they're not sure where to go now. The rec department seems to be the place because that's the building, or it's a phone. Or they get a whole bunch of fun questions at the rec department because that's the phone number they call. So, you know, the marketing aspect of this and the conversion of this is critical, but I think at the end of the day, the investment is worth just for the fact that it really sacrifices our need to get a space that is usable and it's accessible, because the demographic that uses that museum today is not my demographic. I can be quite sure of that, and you know, that's accessibility tends to be a problem, and right now that's like huge cost in the old building. So I think we get that from both this perspective.
Well, if you'll allow me, that the thing of it is, it lets us get into a proper tourist information center as well as programs to show things that we're proud of from the past. Further comments from councillors? Councillor Say.
The only other question I would have, and maybe the fact that Bill is here, maybe the group from the old, that's not the right word I want to use. The previous volunteers of the museum. I would like to get something from them, maybe if that can be coordinated through to the back to the municipality, to say what their comments about this kind of plan is, because obviously there has been many a time where there's been a lot of frustration about what are we doing with this facility, what are we not doing with this facility, and the programming with regards to it. So I would like to get some information from the past group to see what their appetite about what this direction is. I know, again, at the end of the day, it is council's decision, but you know, at the end of the day, if it changes the idea of the group, then you know, I think it's even a bigger win from that perspective.
Councillor Vaughan.
That raises another point that we would benefit from an answer from the past volunteers. Given the new life that we seem to be putting into the museum project, would that be encouraging for volunteers to come forward again and donate time and effort and ideas? That would be something to consider.
that I think it would be entirely appropriate to ask for some recommendations that I'm taking, there's a consensus that we want to move forward to have something done, and that I would definitely appreciate the past volunteers making recommendations to us as to how to help show off what we have, and also from the tourist side as to what would help pull in more tourists to see what we have to offer. Because advertising ourselves is probably worth the $30,000 that might be there as a win-win. That for the recommendation for this,
I will make a motion to recommend the removing of the museum based on the report presented by Melissa Scott from the rec department as indicated.
did you want to include anything else, such as a request in it that for Friends of the Museum to?
Again, I don't
Or is
know.
that separate?
To me, it's really a discussion that, they're an opportunity there. Whoever's going to lead this transition has got to know from the council perspective that group has been a vocal point of this museum for more than probably that I've been alive. So the conversation needs to be that they have that they need to get some support if they can use it. I think they should be willing to ask the question. Don't just take this on yourself and think you have all the world's answers in one. Just make sure we utilize the people who have used that space, because they know the artifacts, they know all the things that we have. Let's utilize the people that we have. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be in the motion. I think as long as staff understand, I think that those options are there, I think we'll be all happy.
Councilor
Second
Lund?
the motion.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
Mhm. Any further discussion?
I think by doing this tonight, we have also said to the landowner that we are very interested in this building. He has been holding this for us. And I think he's maybe getting a little tired and wondering just where we're going and what we're going to do. I think tonight this was a real good move that we have made.
It's swirling in my nose now.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Carrie?
Can we applaud?
Certainly. So keep up the good work and carrying the ball.
Thanks, Lori. Push up.
Still work for you.
Okay, moving to correspondence. 7.1, Transfigured Town, Inc. Request to declare the Festival of Wizardry a municipally significant event. That the Council of the Township of North Huron recognizes that the Festival of Wizardry will be held in the Blyden District Community Center and Campground on September 21st to 23rd, 2018. Further, that the council hereby declares the 2018 Festival of Wizardry a municipally significant event. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hallahan? Councillor Vauden? Is there discussion on this? All in favor? Carried. Okay. 7.2, City of Hamilton Resolution, Cannabis Grace Period. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby endorses the resolution for from the city of Quinte West requesting that once cannabis legislation is passed, that a 6-month grace period be enacted to ensure that municipal law enforcement officers and the Ontario Provincial Police are adequately trained to enforce the said legislation. That's moving.
I will move, but I have a comment.
I'll take a seconder first. Deputy Reeve Campbell, going back to Councillor Syke.
So I assume in this discussion that the city of Hamilton or the city of Quinte West understands that the municipal law enforcement won't be properly trained or properly understand what the laws and regulations are by October. I'm assuming that's what they're getting at. There has been no communication from the government about what those regulations are from a provincial or a municipal perspective at this point. So I'm assuming by October, we're not going to get any more clear information. So I think that's where they're getting at. Is that how I read this correctly?
The way I read it was that we don't throw aspersions at law enforcement officers that don't have the wherewithal to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing for at least 6 months after it's enacted.
I will say that I will be bringing whatever a decision of the council here is. I will be communicating this information to the Police Services Board so that they are understand and aware that that is what the request of council has been, so that the Police Services Board can understand and the chief understands how we as council are interpreting.
We'll try and get
yes.
along
Yep.
within this 6-month period after it's enacted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, 7.3. Margaret Spear, letter of request to be appointed civil marriage officiant for the Township of North Huron. And the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby direct staff to prepare a bylaw to appoint Margaret Spear as a civil marriage officiant for the Township of North Huron. We will ask her to come to the podium and make any presentation you want, please.
Thank you, North Huron Council, for looking at my request. It's been a long time dream of mine to be able to do this. As a foremost very successful public speaker, it's something I've always wanted to do in the past. I've videotaped weddings, but it just wasn't what I wanted. Now that my kids are a lot older, and it's something that I would like to do, I have done a lot of research. I already have people asking for my business card. The event coordinator for the Four Winds Barn in Brussels has told me that there are a large number of weddings within the next year that do not have officiants, and they're already booking weddings into 2020. My flower girl just booked a wedding there for July 6, 2020. So it's a long-term project, and I already have people asking for my business card. It's something I plan on making this a successful business. I'm very driven, and it's something I have wanted to do for a long time. And I have family members, cousins outside of the area that will be getting married soon that have already requested that. So part of my request would be that I be able to perform civil marriage ceremonies outside of North Huron, given the fact that this area, meaning Brussels, Huron East, is going to become a wedding destination. That is very evident. And if I benefit from that, so will you in turn.
Okay, thank you. And in case council isn't aware, you live on Zion Road?
Yes, I live on Zion Road, around the corner from you. 3666 Zion Road.
And so
And
that,
have so for the last 19 years.
so it would be a wedding officiant for the north end of the municipality.
Yes.
And Ray seconds.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Thank you,
Thank you
and
very
look
much.
forward to the weddings.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Carried. Okay. 7.4, Brian Sharp has sent a letter referring to silt in his water supply. I believe staff is checking things out and working with them so that, do we need a motion or just notification that staff is working on it?
I think that's all that's required.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Well,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have a question though. Would this type of stuff, Sean, would this come up during inspection or, like, this is coming from the user, right? So all of the Veolia's inspections and stuff is coming from the actual source, not the end user, right? Like, I guess my question is would we have any record of this type of stuff in inspection notices or stuff by Veolia from a reporting standpoint?
Through you, Reeve, this type of instance or incident would be only recorded through consumer complaints. It's something that is Veolia tries to capture in the flushing programs.
Mhm.
But we've had this actually was a driver for some very good discussion, and there are some areas in town where Veolia has noticed that their staff has noticed it takes a while to clear up. So really, there's the observation that it takes a while to clear up during flushing, but it's not something that would be picked up in bacteriological sampling or quarterly sampling or that per se.
Deputy Reeve?
There's some of this happen at the end of a line, or most of our lines are looped all through anyway. But if they were sometimes at the end of the line, there is a possibility of getting more of this too.
Through you, absolutely. If you've got a dam, that's going to be even more problematic. But there are some areas that, I guess, based on age of pipe and flow characteristics, that Veolia has noted could be open for some discussion.
Okay, for my Reeves comments, I will comment that Blythe Theatre has expanded the season for the new Canadian Curling Club by 5 extra showings. And that's approximately the 3rd week of September that those will be happening. And in Blythe on the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, there was breakfast served by the Legion Auxiliary, and Lions clubs to aid the Tanner Steffler Foundation, and they were very well attended, especially by visiting ball teams for a tournament in Blythe. But it was very enlightening to see the number of young ladies along with parents and coaches that attended. Friday, September 7th, this is upcoming, there will be a Libro barbecue to aid in doctor recruitment, and the 2 new doctors that started in July are hoping to both attend that, so it's a chance for people to meet and say hello to them. And on Civic Holiday weekend, admittedly, this is in another local municipality, the Lucknow Arena, but there was a 4-H invitational dairy show there that there was 174 exhibitors from 15 counties, and it is possibly the 2nd largest 4-H dairy show in Canada this year, only to be surpassed by the Classic at the Royal Winter Fair this fall. So that's quite a feather in this area, because there was a number of people from North Huron assisted with that. And The Square Dance Camporee at Blythe was a big success again. They want to come back next year. And for their church service on Sunday, the collection, they decided, was donated to North Huron Food Share. So that I think that is a great way of both promoting and receiving help from these people. Okay, I will go to counselors that have a report or an update that they want to deliver. Councillor Vaughn.
In line with your comments on the theater, I've heard that almost a week ago, their seat sales were 8,000 higher than this time last year, which is huge.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else from council? No requests? No notices of motion? Okay, we'll move to bylaws. You want to read that version?
Sure.
Okay. Bylaw number 73, 2018. That I will let Randy read.
Bylaw number 73, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council a service agreement for property standards bylaw enforcement officer between the Township of North Huron, Municipality of Morris Turnberry, and Keppel Creek Bruce Brooklebank be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Sype, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw number 74, 2018.
Being bylaw number 74, 2018, being a bylaw to amend the agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Morris Turnberry and the corporation of the Township of North Huron regarding the supply of water to owners or occupants of land beyond the limit of the municipality. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Vaughn, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 75, 2018.
Bylaw number 75, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council amendment number 2 to the transfer payment agreement for the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund between Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron. Be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga, Councillor Sype, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 76, 2018.
Being a bylaw to authorize the reeve and clerk to sign on behalf of council a letter of agreement between TD Friends of the Environment Foundation and the Township of North Huron for TD Tree Days 2018. Be introduced, read first, second, third, and final time, signed by the reeve and clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Hallahan, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. Any announcements, Dwayne? You have anything? Yeah, okay. So no other business. If we're going to have a town hall public meeting, we maybe better discuss that towards when and where. Do you have any comments, Deputy Reeve?
I think it should be William's turn to have it, so it's something that we have up in the uppers, up above in the theater. I'll be in September sometime.
Councillor Sype?
Yeah, I don't disagree about having it. I guess the question I have is, the fact that we are in lame duck and potentially have a significantly new council, is this something that maybe should be just deferred until January or February when new council has been presented? At least that would give them direction about what the priorities are from ratepayers. I'm just a little bit concerned in the fact that if they are we going to get the same issues that we've been trying to address now, and whatever issues that if any new issues come up, this isn't going to be the council that talks about it. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the timing.
Deputy Reeve?
I think it would be a good time for some of the new candidates to attend a meeting like this, just to see some of the questions that they could be confronted with in January or February. Because some of those things are not going to go away. There's things that need to be done, and I think they need to be addressed to the public. That's just my thinking.
Never thought of it that way.
We don't want to terrify them.
Well,
Too late.
that's how some of us open
Too late.
from.
They're in the army now.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about Deputy Reed's comment or their comments, so I'm fine with continuing the September discussion. I think you're right. I would honestly, if the fact that we have the candidates available, the candidates should be asked if they could attend. At least then they understand what this is all about. Because the municipality has been doing it only for the last 3 years, I believe, since 2 years. It only started since I came on council.
The formality.
The formality of the town.
There was occasional.
Yeah. So I think that would be best if at least they were at least given heads up, contacted or something about when that was, so that they are aware. Because again, not everybody's going to be aware about our press releases and stuff. So direct contact with them, maybe through the clerk or something, that or Karen would be beneficial.
Okay. And as to what Councillor Syke brought forward, I would say towards the end of February, because new people coming on, give them at least 2, maybe even 3 months of orientation as to the rules, regulations, and the lay of the land, so that they have an idea of where they stand before they're nailed to the wall.
Their orientation is the budget, because that's about what time it comes in. So you know what, it'd be definitely an idea for them to understand that. But I think that them pitting what the situation, what the ratepayers' concerns are versus what the financial restrictions that we have, when that information together in a September election inauguration, I think that would be a good package for them to understand completely wholeheartedly when they take their oath of office. Because again, that's what they're going to be delivered with. So I think it's a good that Deputy Reeve mentioned that. So do you need a motion for that?
We should have a motion.
I'll move it for September. Pick a date in September. September. Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. One thing that I forgot to say in the Reeves report is a number of ratepayers are questioning me on the voting system as to what's what. I believe Carrie Ann has a one-pager put together, and that I had asked Dwayne early this afternoon that all candidates can pick up a copy of that, so that they will have the dates, the times that I'll say that they can question the things and early voting will take place in Wingham, the 2 days in Belgrave that it's happening, and in the station in Blythe, so that candidates can pick that up right away. That I believe it is going out with the second set of tax bills later, but for where candidates are being asked, that they would be able to pick up a copy at the office here, and that would assist them in talking to ratepayers. Okay, and no closed session tonight. Unbelievably easy night, eh? Go to the hard part, confirmatory bylaw. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Wadden, all in favor? And motion for adjournment. Councillor Wadden and Councillor Sype, all in favor? Carrie, we're done. Thank you, Council.